We're back with Rick Ulfik, and you saw him last weekend. He announced the exciting start of the 11 Days of Global Unity, and now we're kind of in the middle of those 11 days. And again, Rick is the founder of WeTheWorld, the We campaign. You find all of it at we.net, and we're going to be going to we.net in a few minutes and learning all about it. WeTheWorld is an international coalition building organization, and they have a wonderful mission. It's to maximize social change globally. They're all about creating a world that works for us all. Rick is the co-creator of this 11 Days of Global Unity happening right now. And it all culminates on September 21st with the International Day of Peace. So thank you so much, Rick, for being with us. And thank you for really your lifetime of contribution to our world. And we are honoring you today as an unsung hero. So thank you so much for being with us. And I also appreciate that Kermit the Frog is with us as well. So
Kermit oversees everything that happens.
I can tell he's right above, kind of like Jiminy Cricket. He's right above your shoulder there.
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit about your personal history. What brought you into the peace movement, and how did Global Days of Unity get going?
Right. So my background is that I have I was a full-time musician, and I've had a 35-year music career. I've written music for television and film, commercials, all the networks. I've done music for ABC, CBS, NBC, the Olympics, commercials, feature films, documentaries, all kinds of media. So that's my background. And yet, as interesting as that has been, and I've had the opportunity to do gigs with Carlos Santana and Phoebe Snow and Bernadette Peters, and I'm on one of the early hip hop albums of Queen Latifah, playing keyboards. So I've had this music career, and yet in the mid-1990s, I started realizing, what good is a music career if the world is going down the tubes? And as much as I love music and all of that, I really wanted to be closer to where the action was, to creating a world that works for all. So I started volunteering with organizations that were doing the important work. I became one of Michael Lerner's main organizers in the 1990s for his big conferences that he did. This is Rabbi Michael Lerner. And
he's been on the show several times. So yeah, we know him as Peter.
Exactly. And I became one of his main organizers. And at a certain point, I realized that I wanted to create something that would facilitate collaboration on a global scale, and that was the creation of WeTheWorld. And so we launched that in 1998. So it's been a while since we launched it, but we've had incredible supporters. Jane Goodall was one of the first people to become a major supporter with WeTheWorld. Archbishop Desmond Tutu became a supporter. And in fact, when we launched 11 Days of Global Unity in 2004, Jane Goodall and Marianne Williamson were back-to-back keynote speakers at the launch for September 21st. And it might be interesting for people to realize what the evolution was to create 11 Days of Global Unity. It really started, as we know, with Avon Madison, our dear friend, who has passed, but she helped to lobby the UN to launch the International Day of Peace, hopefully to have a global ceasefire. And this happened in 1981, the resolution. The problem is in the 1990s, the UN was celebrating the International Day of Peace on the opening session of their General Assembly meetings. And in 2001, the opening session was actually on the second Tuesday of 2001, which is September 11th. Now, what happened was there was a push leading up to that by people like Jeremy Gilley, who created Peace One Day as a way of getting the UN to put the International Day of Peace on a single day. He even created this documentary called Peace One Day with Angelina Jolie as one of the
We've had
supporters.
Jeremy on the show too. Last year on Peace Week, Peace Day, he was one of our speakers. So yeah.
Exactly. So I was with Jeremy when he launched Peace One Day, that documentary with Angelina Jolie. And it was at the Ziegfeld Theater in Manhattan. And so the UN wanted to do it, they wanted to move it. And up to that point, like I said, they were doing it on the General Assembly session. So what happened was on Tuesday, the second Tuesday of September, obviously, that was the day of the tragedy. And they made a resolution putting it officially on September 21st. So from 2002 on, it was on September 21st. So for that day, the International Day of Peace actually started by being on September 11th, and then it went to September 21st. And that, we looked at that and we said, this is a symbol of the journey from fear to home, from fear to hope, right? From September 11th to September 21st. And that became 11 Days of Global Unity. That was the end, the beginning of that. And
that makes a lot of sense because, of course, September 11th, for almost all of us, it was just a day we all remember where we were when it happened and the incredible impact. And so thank you for explaining that.
Exactly.
Now, during all these years you've been doing it, you've had a chance to work with some amazing people like Jane Goodall. And who are some of the people that have most impressed you, and what was their teaching? What was it that their message that you'd like to maybe share with us that kind of is at the heart of 11 Days of Global Unity?
Yeah, I mean, it really does have to do with this message of we and creating a shift in consciousness towards a culture of peace. Pretty much everybody who has been a big supporter, like Deepak Chopra, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Jane Goodall, Hazel Henderson, Bob Thurman, all of these people have joined our advisory board, and so they have different kind of flavors, as you can imagine. They have different paths, and yet it's almost like all these different rivers or streams flowing together and creating rivers, and then winding up in this ocean of unity and peace. So, but the theme that we have been talking about is creating this culture of peace, but it's also we consciousness,
Mhm.
So in a sense, like I always say, let's go from a me society to a we society, right?
What's as you've been in this field for so long, is there anything that you can share that gives people hope? Is there anything changes that you've seen or observed? Because obviously right now, a lot of people are struggling to find hope in this world, and would love to hear from you on that.
Sure. And yes, you and I, Scott, participated recently in a discussion hosted by the Evolutionary Leaders Circle on the future of democracy in crisis. So yes, there are a lot of people who are worried about that, and it's not just in the United States. There are countries where the culture has developed to kind of put at the top an authoritarian leader who they feel will create the kind of order and strength that will keep them to survive. But we are interested in going beyond that to have that more inclusive kind of concept. And people in our circles and so many others are resonating with this message that it's so important to have people be part of that we, because they realize that if it's a culture of us versus them, it's not going to work. And don't we all have to come together in order to solve humanity's greatest challenges, like climate disruption and climate crisis as an example. But of course, it's also poverty, and all of these challenges. Intolerance itself is a challenge to all of humanity, because how close are we to getting countries that have nuclear arms that might, the worst, a wrong message that happens between Russia and the United States could result in the end of civilization. There's so many things. So it makes so much sense for us to be inclusive and bringing people together. And there are techniques to do that. I just wanted to bring that in as well, because some people just figure, oh, well, the different tribes, let's say, are never going to get together, right? So some people are cynical in that way. But I've been involved with something called nonviolent communication. Someone named Marshall Rosenberg developed this decades ago. He actually joined the advisory board for WeTheWorld, and he was one of the first. He helped to launch 11 Days of Global Unity, along with some other folks by we created something called the Universal Declaration of Interdependence, and Marshall Rosenberg was one of the first people to sign that. So the idea of nonviolent communication is that there's a certain set of needs that everyone shares. It doesn't matter what their politics are. It doesn't matter what country they have from, their ethnic backgrounds or nationalities, their religions, or any of that. People share these needs for things like love and intimacy and meaning, autonomy, choice. There's about 90 of them, 95 of them.
Rick, I'm smiling because Marshall was my mentor. I traveled and talked with Marshall. Just yesterday, I hosted an online show where we were talking a lot about the principles that I learned from Marshall. So this is something that you and I share in common, is the joy of having known him personally. And certainly he's been a huge influence in my life, a really, really.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, so I love that we have that in common. That's beautiful.
It's great that we have that in common. Marshall came to New York for the first time. It was either 2002 or 2003, or he hadn't been in New York for like 20 years. And one of our board members, Ina Bransom, said, make sure you go to his workshops. It's an opportunity. And I went to 5 of his workshops. And then I set up a meeting with him, and that's when he joined the advisory board for WeTheWorld. But the main point here is this, that we have that basis, that kind of commonality that all humans share. And I've had long conversations with people who have been supporters of Donald Trump. And in that way, we have, if we focus on the commonality that we share, it's not hard to connect with people about that. It's only when people get to their buttons get started being pushed, when they're talking about political specific areas that that they are invested in, so or used to in some way. But then if we focus on actually satisfying people's needs and creating a mechanism that actually, like a society that can actually satisfy people's needs, and people can come together to do that on a large scale, there's no reason why we can't do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rick, I'm still smiling about our mutual connection with Marshall. It's really beautiful. I'm going to go to your website, and I'd love for you to show us around a little bit, and begin to learn all about the wonderful work that Rick is doing with we.net. And that's the website, we.net. And of course, a lot of things that they are doing, including the 11 Days of Global Unity, which we launched a few days ago. And there's so much happening. Now, can people still volunteer to be a part of 11 Days of Global Unity?
Always, always. I mean, it's like, all year round, but of course, during 11 days, there are so many opportunities. And, we have these 11 themes that have become 11 campaigns. So we encourage people to get involved in each of those campaigns,
Right.
which include.
The ones that you read at the beginning.
Yes, here, yeah, you're showing it right now. Yes.
relate to any of these things. And one of the great things is all the people you're collaborating with. And look at all these amazing organizations, many of whom I'm familiar with, one of which is the Sign Network. And look who just joined us. I'm delighted that here's our buddy, John Raymer, who's with us as well.
Hey, John.
Good to see you, Rick. Love you.
Wow, amazing, right?
I know.
You
Rick
know,
and I have been together for a long time.
Yes.
it's
And
good to hear, John, because
and you.
we're celebrating as part of the whole Peace Week program. I've launched Unsung Heroes, and we're celebrating Rick as an unsung hero of this movement. And I'd love to have you share with our audience a little bit about what Rick has meant to you over the years and what you've observed about this beautiful man.
Well, I know a couple of things about Rick that maybe everyone doesn't know, but he's a fabulous musician, which is for me like holy man. To make music is such a sacred act, and Rick does such a great job and gives so joyously of himself. But of course, his legacy will be in the creation of WeTheWorld and the whole We.net and that whole movement, and the way that the reframe of turning 9/11 into a day to launch 11 days of global unity. I mean, that's Compassion Games partnered with him for years and done that. He's been a grantee of our MLK work. I mean, Rick is always, and he and I are always, whenever we have this conversation, we're talking about what's the state of the world when it comes to collaboration and what can we do to get, and Scott, you're a master at this too. So, it's a different pattern. Thinking we think is different than me think. And it's something that this generation is going to figure out, or there won't be a lot more generations here. So the urgency to embrace a we way of operating, and which means love for me. I mean, your concerns for each other and your concerns become my concern, and individual interests become common interests when we can create a we space. So that's Rick's unique gift and talent. And Picasso said the meaning of life is to know your gifts. The purpose of life is to give them away. Giving that away for a long time. As do you, Scott. I mean, come on. It's not a compliment. It's just an observation. I know the real thing when I see it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. That was so beautiful.
I love you, Rick. So
I
glad
love
to
you
see
too.
you. I just recently talked to you, but it's good to see you.
I know.
Well,
I was telling Rick just how beloved he is, and you mentioned Rick Ulfik, and people always like light up. And we just discovered that we both have a common connection with Marshall Rosenberg.
yes.
Connection that we both spent quality time with him. So I'm going to wrap up this. We're recording this so that we can broadcast it and play it on a show that, John, you're going to be helping to co-host. So it's perfect timing. Rick, again, thank you so much. And is there any last thing that you want to encourage people when they go to We.net or 11 Days of Global Unity? Anything in particular you really want to encourage them to make sure that they know about, including your big closing ceremony for on the 21st of September?
Well, we have all of these things going on, and we encourage everyone to go to We.net, be part of that. You'll see all of the partners there, and many other partners that we haven't, that maybe you don't know about. And I one of the sliders that you showed earlier, Scott, we didn't really talk about it, but there was one on the branches, the new, they're not actually new, but the branches that we have in Botswana and Burundi and Rwanda and Tanzania and Nigeria and other places. And they're all participating in 11 Days of Global Unity and the We campaign. I also wanted to, before I forget, mention about trends in global grassroots organizing, which is a magazine that was launched a couple of years ago, and that features contributions from authors on all of the 11 themes. So if you go to trends.we.net, you can upload your own articles. We call them trend reports. Trend reports on creating a world that works for all. So anyway, a lot of things, a lot of ways people can get involved. And I want to thank you, Scott, and great to see you, John. And don't forget, let's go from a me society to a we society.
I love that. And while you were talking, I did pull it up. There it is, trends.we.net. Thank you so much, Rick. We love you, and take care. Thanks for being with us. And thanks for all your contributions to our world.
Thank you.